Hey friend, in this video, I'm going to show you my go-to method for EQing synthesizers in a dense live worship recording. And today we're using the song Be Glorified by Elijah Hickman. Let's just dive in. So as you guys can see on the screen, there are a bunch of synths. We got about 10 here. These last two are like fake strings. And so I'll just show you that real quick. So super simple, but for the most part, there's lots of pads and just some kind of general synthesizers. None of these really follow any melody line or counter melody lines. They're there to add texture and to add bigness to the sound. So here's like here's what it sounds like in verse 2 with some of those synths. Well, maybe if I'd hit the solo button correctly. There we go. And then we'll just hit the ending here. There's a bunch going on. So, basic rule of thumb for me is all of these, none of these are like bass synths. And so you're going to see there's a Pro Q3 on each one. And I'm literally rolling off a bunch of low end and maybe doing some tiny little changes. Now, would I do a bigger change if the synth sound maybe didn't sound as good as I wanted it to and I needed to do some sculpting? Totally would. But all of these sound pretty good. And by the way, I'm pretty sure most of these were used with like basic Logic plugins. Elijah can back me up on that. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure he used a lot of Logic synths and stuff like that. So you'll see on some of these where I just had a small dip. And so which one? I don't even know which one I just opened up. So, pads. Let me find that one. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just go with this one. So synth 5. So this one comes in, it's at in verse 2 and at the end here. So I just noticed there's a ton of mid-range happening, and it was kind of getting in the way of the guitars, of the bass guitar, even some of the drums. And so I just did a little bit of a pull out here. You guys can listen here. I'm just going to bring this up so you guys can hear what this sounds like. You see, it just sounds like I just wanted less of that. So we just pulled it down a little bit, off, on, super, super simple. And a lot of these synth tracks are going to be like that, to where like that one I didn't hardly do anything. That one's just rolling off a bunch of low end. I'm rolling off a bunch of high end on this one. So that's pads 5. So it's before. And so I think this was getting in the way of the guitars and the vocals a bunch. So really, it's just a bunch of small stuff. This one I pulled some high end out of. Okay, so basically after you go through each one, the only thing I really probably did some really big EQ on is on the strings, because these are fake strings. So before, just dark, a lot more exciting after that, like a lot more energy in there. And I did the exact same thing to the other one as well. But this is not really the main thing. I mean, you guys can use your ears, go in and EQ the individual synths. That should be a general rule of thumb for what you always do. But here is the thing that it really makes a game changer for whenever you are EQing, is really creating room for the other instruments. So in this particular mix, the guitars are really driving hard. So just to show you guys that, we'll just show you guys the ending. Like they're really, really driving that ending of the song. And I do not want the synths to get in the way of that, okay? Like I want them to add to it, but I want them to get in the way. And so what we'll do is I'll grab F6, and it's a dynamic EQ. And if you guys have been following it for any amount of time, you guys have known that I love this plugin and that I use it all the time on everything. So what I don't want is this area, like 250 to 1K, I don't want the guitars to get overtaken there. And so if I just pull this up, it can get really muddy really quickly. And so and we just don't want that, you know. So what we're going to do is we're going to sidechain. So you go up to your sidechain here. We're going to sidechain the guitar bus, the electrics bus, to this EQ bell here, and then we're going to let me play the song here. Actually, here, let me move some stuff around. So now we can hear all of this. See, like right now, they're really clashing. Actually, a little bit higher. So right here, so it's actually, yeah, 500 to 1K. So right here is where it's really clashing. And in my opinion, and for the song, what I think the song needs is I feel like that needs to be utilized for the guitars more. So, but I don't want to completely take it out of the synths, because the synths, it sounds good. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? So I only want it to be taken out whenever the guitars are hitting hard. So when the guitars are not hitting hard, it comes back up, and then vice versa. When the guitars are hitting hard, it gets pushed down. So this is why dynamic EQ is so great. So we're going to take this guy, we're going to change it to external here for the sidechain source. And then now we're going to listen and find the threshold here. We're going to dial in the threshold of where the guitar. So now this meter here is going to model what the guitars are hitting. And so I'm just going to dial it in so it's just barely touching it. And then you're going to change the range, and I'll probably just pull it down a couple dB. So you guys see, it's not really doing any more than like 2.5 dB of gain reduction there. And so now let's just bypass it. So I don't know if you guys are using some nice headphones or some speakers, you can definitely hear that the guitars just feel like they elevate, but they don't. Like, there's no volume change on the guitars. It's just we're pulling out some of those key frequencies where the synths and the guitars are clashing. And so that is a huge game changer. And then you guys have also seen me do this. We're going to pull in another F6. This is something I also do on synthesizers if it's needed. What we're going to do is actually pull in from the 2K to 4K range, and we're actually going to do the vocals. So let me find the all vocals bus here, set it to external, and then I need to unmute the vocals. I think, yeah. So we'll go here and play here. It's still muted somewhere. There we go. Jesus be glorified. There's no name above your name. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to come here. We're going to do the same exact thing that we just did, except with the vocals. So this meter here is going to be modeling the vocals now. So let's give it a whirl, let's give it a play, and then pull this in. So you can see we can keep the synths super loud, but then but just by doing these two, where it's pulling out certain frequencies only when the other instruments are hitting, you can keep the synths very heavy in the mix without them clashing. And so now I'm just going to I'm going to turn these two plugins off, and you guys can kind of hear in the mid range where there's going to be a lot more clashing. It's just going to gently clean it up. It's kind of messy right now. I put these in. And something I even just now noticed was like I got more of that bass articulation came out a little bit. And I'm not even sidechaining that. It's helping with all of those ranges. And then last thing that I always like to throw on the synth bus is whenever you're stacking these and going into a bus, it can easily get overwhelming. And so what we have here is just a C6, which is a multi-band compressor. I like to use these because oftentimes in the mid-range here, it can just get so overwhelming, especially when synths are stacked on top of each other. So especially like here at the end, whenever there's a bunch going on. So I like to really dial in the center here and just get it so that when it gets really overwhelming, it just pulls that down. Keeps the synths locked in. This is really good. Instead of using a basic compressor, using the multi-band compressor is almost like you're reshaping you're not reshaping the EQ, but you're keeping the EQ intact of your overall synth sound, and then that will create so much more consistency going down into the mix later on, whenever things are going up and down. Because what's going to be great is that your overall synth bus is going to relatively stay in the same frequency spectrum, but then you can come in here and automate some of these specific synths to kind of come more into the mix, but it won't become overwhelming. It'll just kind of be brought up overall. So it's a really, really good way to keep some more consistent sound in your mix from your overall synth track. So that is pretty much it, guys. Simple EQ across the board on each synth. Dial it in, and then do some sidechain dynamic EQ off of whatever the main instrument. Maybe the main instrument is keys. Do it to keys. Maybe the main instrument is, or maybe you want your bass to poke out more. Maybe your bass and your synths are battling. So do that. And then I also like to do it on vocals, especially a mix like this where there's a lot going on. So you sidechain the vocals as well, and then throw on a multi-band compressor, and you're off to the races. So hope that was helpful, guys. Try this on your next mix. I promise it'll make everything smoother, sound better. And if you guys liked this, I have a whole EQ and compression mixing cheat sheet down below, absolutely free, my gift to you. And I think next up we have vocals, right? I think is that what we're on? I think so. So next week there'll be some vocals. Check that out.